Alright guys, good afternoon and welcome to another TA update. I'm sorry this one is one that's a little bit later than usual. I've had some personal issues that I had to sort out. Meanwhile, it's 3:45 here in the UK and today is the 22nd of June 2022. So I'll just do the checks here to make sure that the audio and the video are working. And everything seems to be working fine. The audio is working and so is the video. So we'll just crack on. So yeah, again, apologies for being a little bit late. I usually tend to do this before the New York session opens, just so that we can sort of preempt that volatility, but it wasn't to be today. And just, you know, for some of you that have been asking, my son's fine. It's just a fractured foot, and that's kind of the joys of being in combat sports and mixed martial arts. So it's just an injury and he's out for a few weeks, but everything's fine. So anyway, let's crack on and we can look at the stock market here on the heat map, and you can see that the great majority of it is in the green, although there are a few exceptions here with energy and minerals, producer manufacturing, industrial services and so on. But the great majority of it is in the green, and there's a little bit of a mixed bag, no doubt. But that's what's going on in the stock market. On the cryptocurrency heat map, you can see that the great majority of it is also a mixed bag. So some are in the red, some are in the green. We're starting to see a little bit of a relief bounce, but to be honest, it's really just kind of ranging at the moment, even though the range is not very clearly defined. But we'll get to that in just a second. Volatility that's happened today was due to Jay Powell doing a little talk, and I think he did a talk at 2:30 p.m. And he testified with the semi-annual monetary policy report before the Senate. So we've got another one of these tomorrow, I think at 3 p.m. I think he's got another session where he has to testify. So we could see a little bit of volatility there as well. But that is pretty much it for the rest of this week. So there'll be some more volatility next week if we look at the calendar there and then. So with that, I think I'm just going to move on straight to the charts, and I'm just going to check here on the S&P correlation chart with Bitcoin. So the S&P is in blue, and the orange line you see here is Bitcoin, and you can see that the S&P is rallying. Okay, so we've got a little bounce here, which is obviously a result of this meeting that they've had today in the United States. But Bitcoin is kind of like lagging behind. It's following, but it's lagging behind, right? So if we look at this, this is the 1 hour chart this time. I usually do this on the 4 hour, but you can see here that the great majority of the time the S&P leads, right? So here we had a dump, right? Guess what? Bitcoin did a dump until here, right? And you could even argue, for example, that this price action here where we dumped significantly was actually a produce of this dump here. Well, either way, as you can see, the blue line happened earlier in time. Okay, so there is a little bit of a leading thing happening with the S&P, and as such, you can see that, for example, like here we rallied, there was a little bit of a decorrelation, and then as it continued rallying there halfway through, Bitcoin rallied as well. However, when we dump on the S&P, it's almost immediate on Bitcoin, right? So again, we've been here we were rallying as well, right? And then Bitcoin decided to dump a little bit before, so Bitcoin was leading here. So it's a little bit difficult to say if Bitcoin is going to follow or not. But if I'm looking at this as taking it in turns to lead or whatever, I would say that Bitcoin is going to follow the lead of the S&P for the time being. So let's have a look at the S&P chart, and we start here with a 3-day chart, looking at the higher time frames first. And you can see that basically I've got these lines here. This green line is kind of almost obsolete, so I'm just going to delete it for a second, right? Because the reason I say it's almost obsolete is because before this was there, before all of this price action down here was created, and as such the disparity in volume here, this high volume cluster here, was a lot clearer, right? Now it's not as clearly defined, and in fact this is a whole cluster here. The distribution is becoming a little bit more homogeneous. You know, it's looking a little bit more like one distribution rather than a double distribution. So as such, I'm going to remove that green line, and we can judge resistance by other means, by looking at the VWAPs and the standard deviations and so on. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that as well. I'm going to delete these ranges here, just because the dynamics changed a little bit. So I'm just going to sort of like, generally speaking, I'm just going to put a sort of like take this as a whole range. Okay, so we've tapped the bottom, and this is resistance up here around about 3,992 points. Okay, you could argue, however, that the value area low of this 2021 VWAP, which closed round about here, right, also has confluence, as you can see here, with the second standard deviation of the developing year's VWAP, of this current year's VWAP. Okay, so it's very, very close, and that's sitting at around about 3,888. Okay, so let's say 3,880, just for argument's sake. Okay, which is this little low volume node right there. All right, so this could potentially be a little bit of resistance, but you can see we've got a little way to go yet. All right, so this will make more sense in a minute when we look at Bitcoin. But you know, if it's so closely correlated, then I expect Bitcoin to follow basically what the S&P is doing and move forward, or you know, to go up basically. Okay, of course this could all change, especially with tomorrow's meeting, but it does look, even though I have not looked at the notes because I've literally just come back from the hospital with my son, but it does look like whatever it was positive, right? Whatever the news were, it sounds like they were positive. So that's what's going on the higher time frames here. If we can look at the smaller time frames, you can see here on the 4-hour chart that we've basically well inside the value area low of the current month's VWAP, right? So that's usually a good sign. So in terms of like acceptance, this was rejected here, it was also rejected here, and now it does look like we're still rallying, so we haven't retraced at all, but it's essential that we stay above this level here. You could even argue that 3,720 should now be support, which is basically that low volume area that you can see here, this low volume node, right? So as long as we stay above this level here, then I think we're good to carry on up. So that's what I'm seeing, right? So as you can see here that at 3,860, even though I looked at 3,880, right, we were looking at the higher time frames, and we were looking at 388, which is around about here, right, and as resistance. However, you can see here on the smaller time frames that 3,860 is actually the level to look for in terms of resistance. Okay, so as a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this on the higher time frames and just see. I'm going to put this line down here, this orange line, I'm going to leave it there, and 3,860, yeah, I can see it. It's basically on this daily chart, you can see it clearly here. It's this low volume area here, right? So let me just make this a little bit clearer like this. It's this low volume area here, right? 3,860 is round about there, all right, which actually has confluence with this previous level of support. So I should put a little line there, and I will put a little line there, and I'll just put one round about here. Okay, and I'll just put that as a red line, a red dotted line if you like. I'm going to reduce the color of that because overall we are in a bigger cluster, right? So we're inside of this bigger cluster, and you can see this little red line that I've just put in, the faint line if you like. I've just put it in there like that, and it lines up perfectly with this low volume node here. So, but overall this is one large distribution, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the price kind of get above that, but it is still a line of resistance nonetheless. Okay, so that's what I can see from the 4-hour chart, and we'll have a look at the 30-minute chart as well. But yeah, so basically what we want to see is the price to get back above here, and then get acceptance inside of this little distribution here, or even find a little range inside of this one here, but stay definitely above this. Okay, that's what we would like to see on the long term for a chance for Bitcoin to get a chance to go to these higher levels. You can see that we kind of formed a little range here. We tested the lows, came back to the highs again, deviated above, came back to the lows. So you can argue that this is definitely one single distribution. However, it's also very clear that we've spent time above and below that orange line that I've got there. So so that's also significant. And we've got a monthly VWAP there as well, and the previous month's value area low right where the VWAP is. Okay, so at 3,920. So all in all, there's plenty of resistance above us, but there is a little bit of room to breathe, especially from here to this level here, right? As you can see, there's a tapering volume there, so I think there is a possibility that we kind of rally higher here and just test that level of resistance. So that's what I'm seeing here on the S&P, and I expect Bitcoin to follow through as well. When, I don't know, but I do expect it to follow the same course, the same trajectory as the S&P, right? You can see here on the 30-minute chart, I've got basically a weekly VWAP there. We're reaching the value area high of that weekly, of the previous week, sorry. This is the previous week close, right? This is the value area low. We've smashed inside it. Once we get acceptance inside and back above the weekly VWAP, we rallied and we got to the top of, so basically to the value area high of the previous week's VWAP, okay? You can see that now we're kind of struggling with this little thin area here, right? And of course there's going to be a little bit of resistance there, but there's tapering volume all the way past this red line. So let's just wait and see if we can break above that. Breaking above that would be definitely bullish, and it would put us in this range here, somewhere between 3,860 and 3,980, and that would be definitely a little bit more favorable for Bitcoin as well. Okay, so let's just wait and see how it all plays out, and yeah, and just move forward from there. Okay, of course, if we cannot just put this on the 4-hour here, if we cannot get acceptance back above this red line here, then I'm afraid that we'll probably get rejected at that means we got rejected at the top there, and that I'm afraid that we will be kind of, in fact, let me just make this a little bit more accurate here. I'm going to put that as a green line there, a little bit fainter as well. Okay, so just make a little bit more granular. Okay, so what makes sense is if we do not get accepted back above this red line here, right, about the 3,862 points, that means almost certainly that we come back and test these lows here. Okay, as you can see from this low volume node, 3,720 or 3,719 is that level that we need to hold, right? So as long as we stay above that, that means we range here like this. And if we cannot hold that, then we go lower, and of course we're going to take new lows and go all the way down to 3,600. You can see here that basically 3,640 was the level that we stopped at, that we got bought at, 3,650 if you like, and that's basically that 3,600, which is the edge of a high volume cluster getting front run, right? That's basically, as you can see it here very, very clearly, you can see that this low volume node here at 3,600 got front run. Okay, we never actually tapped that low there. So I'm afraid sometimes it's just the way it is. People front run levels, and that's just somebody's edge doing that, right? It's probably a big whale waiting with big orders way down here, and somebody just decided to front run that. Anyway, that's what I've got on the S&P. Looking at the Nasdaq is very much the same situation. Let's start here with the 3-day chart. And you can see that basically we're tapping, we're really close to that resistance level there, and you can argue that this level here is pretty much redundant now, and I think that what I would focus more on is this low volume node here, this point of control here. In fact, I would put this up here, just updating these levels, right? So just to make sense, and basically if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm looking at these volume clusters here, right, which is basically areas of balance or ranges, if you like. Okay, so basically what we're looking at is we bounced here and right on the edge of this shelf, if you like, of this kind of ledge on the volume profile, and we're back above the value area high of 2020, which is this level here. right? Strong resistance at this yellow line. As you can see, this is basically the -2 standard deviation of the 2021 VWAP right here, right? And there's a low volume node, so there's plenty of confluence there to show me that that's going to be resistance. But as you can see, we've got a little bit of room to go until we get there. All right, even if we break above that, you can see that we got rejected not once but 2 or 3 times here on entering or trying to enter the value area lows. You can see here of the developing years VWAP, of the 2022 VWAP, right? That's that line there, and you can see very clearly that we got rejected twice there now. Okay, as you can see here, once and then twice. All right, so basically, even if we do find that we manage to get back above this line here, this here is going to be strong resistance. Of course, if we break above that, then I think the new range will definitely be here. But the reason I'm highlighting this is that we could quite easily go all the way up here and then fall back inside of this range, okay, and carry on trading inside of this range here. All right, so just keep that in mind when if you're paying attention to this, or if you're trading this. It's just like, you know, just passing this yellow line, the low volume node, is not enough, although there is that value area low of 2021 here, right, the -2 standard deviation. We've still got this level here, okay, so we could even just do something like this, get rejected, and then fall back inside of this and go lower. So just pay attention to that. But the main point that you can take away from this, if you take nothing else, is the fact that we've got plenty of room to move up from where we are now at 11,678 to 12,200. So we could see a nice little rally leading into the weekend here and well into next week, depending on what the news are from tomorrow, when Jay Powell comes out and does yet another statement. Okay, so with that we can move on to Bitcoin, but before, I wanted to show you something else. And on Bitcoin, again, just to put things into context, I want to show you this. Today is the 22nd of June, and in a couple of days, on the 24th, it's the last Friday of the month. Okay, so as such, usually on every last Friday of the month, we have an option contract expiry. And here on Deribit, this is actually the quarterly expiry, if I'm not mistaken, because it is the June contract, right? So I think this is for the second quarter. And of course, we've got $2.1 billion of notional value expiring at 9 AM UK time on the June contract. All right, so as you can see, the open interest, where is it? The historical volatility is way up. Okay, so the top volume is not quite as high as some of the others. Okay, but you can see that where is the open interest? Here it is. See the open interest here? This is quite a lot of calls there, right? So it's the great majority of it is bullish. All right, and now we've also got the max pain price at $30,000. Now, max pain price means literally just the fact that if Bitcoin's price is anywhere near 30,000, all of these contracts, being it calls or puts, will expire worthless. Okay, that's why it's called max pain, right? So this is the price at which all of the contracts will expire worthless. And may I remind you that Bitcoin is currently around about $20,000, right? $20,500. So that's quite a big push to get in just 2 days to 30,000. So I've said this before, this max pain price has become a bit of a meme. As before it was very accurate, but I think as more people starting to look at it, it's become a little bit of a meme. But you never know, right? I have seen the price rally significantly just to go all the way up to max pain price. So, you know, there's lots of things that I don't understand about options contracts. I know that a lot of it is just used for hedging, so I wouldn't take that as gospel, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye on this, especially as we got $2 billion in notional value for this one. Okay, so the open interest is quite high considering, and it has been increasing for the last sort of few weeks, you know, for a few weeks and months, as you can see here, from all the way from May, it's just been increasing and increasing and increasing, right? So even though the volume seems to be decreasing, the open interest is definitely increasing. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that before I move on to the Bitcoin chart. So we've seen that it's closely correlated with the S&P. We've also seen that we've got expiries happening on Friday, giving us the max paying price at $30,000. All right, and we've had a significant dump from, you know, I think we're down like something like 70% from the all-time highs, right? What was that? 72% we dumped, right? So that's quite a significant haircut there, right? So anyway, the let's move on to the analysis on Bitcoin. Now, if I was to take the second standard deviation here, I'll take that off just for a second. You can see where the price came to, right? We got rejected from previous value, around about here, okay, when we fell out of 37,000, all right? So first of all, we just highlight this, okay? We were inside the value, we tested the edge, we got back inside that value area there, okay? So the value area low, we bounced quite a few times from the value area low, and we got all the way up to the 2021 VWAP close, which is here, right? We got all the way up there. However, we got rejected there. When we came back down, we started losing ground, and we started losing that sort of acceptance inside of this range here, right? So it started off by getting rejected at the midpoint at the VWAP, right? Once we've lost that, you can see that the price accelerated down. So this is basically accepting outside of balance, so finding an imbalance, right? And then even though we spent quite a lot of time here, as you can see, this is a high volume cluster here. We were right on the edge of that, right? And we held there for quite some time. Eventually, we couldn't get back up to test that balance again. And so we sought balance lower, okay? Where did we find the next area of balance? Right here, right about $19,000, okay? So we did dip below. We went to like 17,000, as you can see from this wick. But we got very quickly rejected out of there. So it's key that we stay above this level here. Right, that is absolute key, and at the moment it does look like we are, okay, we're outside of that. If we get acceptance back inside of this here, which is basically the 2020 value area, right? So this is the VWAP close here, this is the value area high, this is the value area low. So getting acceptance inside of here means that almost certainly we will go and test at least the VWAP here, which is sitting at around about $14,000. So we don't want to think about that just yet, okay? It's a possibility, but you know, at the moment it does look like we're getting rejected there. So I just wanted to highlight that for you, just so that you understand where we are in context, where we are regarding value areas, right? So I'm going to put the second standard deviation. As you can see, these are pretty accurate. Look at where we got rejected there on the second standard deviation. Same here, all-time highs was basically the second standard deviation, and here we got rejected of the lower second standard deviation as well, right? So, and then that's where we rallied and tested the other one. Here, same thing, we hovered too long close to that second standard deviation, and of course eventually we pushed through. Okay, so we bounced from this one, and now we're trying to see if we can get we got rejected off of there, where we're going to find value next, right? So will we go all the way to 28,600, which is basically the previous value area low here, the second standard deviation, or will we find resistance here? I'm betting that we'll find resistance here, and that's sitting at around about $25,500. If you look over to your right, in fact, I can just put a little line there, right? Just put a little line like that, and you can see that that's 25,300 or something like that. All right, so now you can see more or less in context where we are in this kind of in terms of balance here, and you can see where we are and where it's likely on the higher time frames that we find resistance. Okay, so 25,000 is a level that I want you to remember. Okay, so in the meantime, let's just look at the lower time frames. Okay, and I want to highlight something here very sort of significant. So what I've done here, and I'm just going to take the VWAPs off for a second, is I put a couple of anchored VWAPs, right? So I put an anchored VWAP here from this swing high here, right? So this is the last swing high before the big impulse, okay? And you can see that that's the VWAP is anchored to this, right? You can see that we stayed below, we tested it once, and we've tested it twice now, and it's still getting rejected. So that's definitely resistance. Okay. Additionally, I've put one from the swing low down here, and guess where the price came and bounced from? Right from that level there. Okay, so it's quite possible now that we find a range somewhere between 20,000 and 21,700. Okay, that is a very tight range, and it's basically just this little volume distribution here. We will eventually break out of that. To which side? I'm building on that. Okay, so just bear with me. All right, so let me just sort of, I just wanted to put this into context, right? So on the higher time frames, and without this anchored VWAP now, okay, I want you to pay attention to something here. On the higher time frames, or on the lower time frames, we are basically trying to get acceptance inside of the monthly value area low, right? And so far we've not been successful. It looked like here we got acceptance, but it does look like we're being rejected here. Being accepted above this level here, which is around about $21,000, okay, getting accepted there and staying there means almost certainly that we will rally to the monthly VWAP. Now look at where that monthly VWAP in context, $25,000, okay, which is that level that I was talking about. Admittedly, there's hardly any volume there, so why would it stop, right? When price tends to accelerate through these areas of low volume. However, it's important to know that we've already looked at the higher time frames, and we saw that $25,000 as an important key level, right? Which is basically the value area high of 2020, so the +2 standard deviation of 2020. It's also this monthly VWAP here, right? And I'm going to put a little line there so that we can look at the rest of the chart and see where that line lands. Okay, so this line here lands perfectly. I'm going to move it so you guys can see it on the other charts, right? Let me just make this a little bit clearer here. Actually, it's not in context. It doesn't mean anything on the 30-minute chart, but the correlation the confluence that I'm trying to show you is that this line here, I'm looking at the bottom right hand corner on the monthly VWAP here, right? This line lands exactly on the value area low of the quarterly VWAP here at the top. Okay, and it also has perfect confluence with that line there that I was talking about before, which is basically the +2 standard deviation of the 2020 VWAP. All right, so you can see how this all starts to paint a picture. So if we do follow what the S&P is doing and we do go up, this is definitely a key level moving forward. Okay, there's obviously more key levels. There's another one here at 28,700, right, which is basically, as you can see here from the top right hand chart, is basically where the previous level of support is. So that's going to be resistance for sure. And then of course we got another one right about here, 37,500, but we'll get to that another time, right? For now, I just wanted you to pay attention to this. The monthly VWAP, which is sitting around about $25,000, is definitely a key level moving forward. Okay, we've got 3 different time frames and 3 different VWAPs converging at this point. Okay, so if you do enter along, don't think that we're just going to go straight to $100,000. $25,000 is definitely the level to look either for a short or to take the great majority of your profits if you are in along. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to show you. $25,000 as a next level of resistance. So of course, on the shorter time frames that I can show you here on the 1 hour chart, you can see that we're starting to form a little range here, right? So I was looking at that the other day. Let me just see if I can find this here. No, it wasn't on the 30-minute chart. Just bear with me just a second. You can see that I haven't prepared. I've just been all day out in hospital today. I haven't prepared this at all, so just please bear with me. I think I might have deleted that, so I'll just put another range. Okay, but it's probably going to be a little bit more visible here, right? So the range I wanted to show you is basically around about something like this. So right, so let's just put it there. put this a little bit more accurate, something like this, right? So that's a range, and you can argue that it's perhaps a little bit lower like this, right? And you can see here the midpoint being tapped here a couple of times. Eventually we lost it. We came to the lower, to the range lows. Now we've reclaimed the mid-range again, which is basically the equilibrium at 0.5, right? So naturally, you would be inclined to think that we're going at least to $23,000, okay? $23,000 the first level of resistance. $25,000 is the next one and the big one, if you like, okay? So I hope this is starting to make sense now. I wanted to paint a picture right from the higher time frames down to the lower time frames, so it starts making sense in terms of context, rather than just going level to level on the lower time frames and then me showing you the bigger picture afterwards, which would make no sense at all, right? So you can see that this is a big level here, 25,000. However, we've got a little range forming here. So what we want to see is basically Bitcoin get acceptance back inside the value area low of this monthly VWAP, right? And then when we get to 23,000, we don't want to see Bitcoin moving back lower again. Even if we break above it like this, right? And even with strength, even if we go all the way up to that level there, what we don't want to see is Bitcoin breaking back inside of the 23K level, all right? We don't want to see that, because that means almost certainly that once we get to here, we test that, this is going to be resistance and we can carry on lower, all right? So basically that would be like a massive bull trap, right? So you want to be aware of that. What we want to see really is basically Bitcoin breaking above this, staying above this, then testing this level of resistance. And even if it fails at first, and even if it comes all the way back down, it wants to stay above 23,000, which is basically this high volume cluster here, right? So then 23,000, which is this low volume node, would be rejected, and we would move straight back up again, okay? And then maybe just hover at resistance until we break it and go on to the next level, which would be 28,500. All right. Of course, this is my plan, and this is why I expect the price to happen. But because, like I said, this is a low volume area, the price could just get here, find a little bit of resistance, and then fucking smash it all the way up to 28,000. It's possible, right? Especially if something happens on the S&P and it just continues rallying, for example. All right. But I do think that we're going to find a little bit of resistance here at 25K, just because that's such a confluent level with so many different time frames and so many different VWAPs converging to that. All right. But ultimately, the next level of resistance will definitely be this level of support here, which is 28,700. And that, if the price accelerates, as you can see here, right? If I show you this a little bit, sort of like this here was basically a thin move. That's why there's hardly any volume there, right? So because it's a thin move, these thin moves tend to get retraced, just like we saw here. It got retraced. This one got retraced. That one then got retraced by this one, right? And then that one up got retraced back down again before we dumped, right? It just seems that all of these moves, like this one, got half retraced there and then retraced there, okay? And every single illiquid move tends to get retraced. It's just the way it is, right? So so just bear that in mind, okay? What I'm trying to say is that we could quite easily retrace this whole thing and leave everybody behind, especially the bears that are thinking that we're going to 12K, right? So what you can take out of this is that basically, you know, these levels of resistance, 23K, 25K, and 28,700, right? How we get to 28,700, I'm not entirely sure. If we do go up, it could be in stages, right? And you now know the invalidation of each of those stages, right? If we get above this one, we don't want to fall back below that VWAP, right? Because that means almost certainly that we're going to go lower, right? So if we reclaim this level, it wants to move up from here, go on to the next one. If it reclaims that level, it wants to stay up from there, or even retest that, but then get straight back up again and just do constructive price action in terms of market structure, something like that, okay? So now you know the levels of resistance that we go above. Levels of support, well, immediately the one I see here is basically this one, around about $20,000. $20,000 seems to be holding like it held here, and we've just reclaimed it, okay? If that doesn't hold, then the bottom of this range has had one tap at around about 17,500. It is possible that we go down there, and I'll show you that in a minute, because we've left quite a few anomalies below. Okay, so 17,500, this might not be over yet, okay? We could get rejected here and go one dip lower. All right, so just bear that in mind. It doesn't mean that we're just going to rally from here and go all the way up there. Okay, so if we do come back down at 17,500, could hold as support, but we could also deviate from these lows. All right, if we deviate from these lows, it's the same system as above. We want to see it get straight back above that 17,500, $18,000 or whatever. Okay, because that's one good sign that we've got some strength. It got acceptance back inside of that range, and we've chances are is we revisit the other side of the range. However, if we fall below and we cannot get back above that 17,500 level, this is no deviation. This is actually just a bearish retest, and this 17,500 is now resistance, and we're going to go much lower. All right, so I couldn't make it any clearer than that, but that's basically what you see. What you do is you look for impulse and range. When you find the impulse and the range, which is basically this is the impulse, this is the range, right? Once you establish the edges of that range, you want to see where the buyers are stepping in, and you want to see where the sellers are stepping in, right? So then, of course, what happens is that there's little traps of liquidity, right, just below and just above, as you know, because basically everybody that's long puts their stops here, and everybody that's short put their stops here. So naturally, what we see little deviations, and then straight back inside the range again. So in this case, it would be bullish, and we'd go up, right? If it was the other way around, if we see a deviation above, take out those stops and fall back inside the range, that's bearish, right? That means that it proves that that was just a deviation. Okay, so what we want to see is that we want to see the edges of this being respected. If we go above, it wants to stay above. If it goes below, it wants to stay below. All right, otherwise we move in the opposite direction. That's basically where we are right now, and this is basically the range that we're at, 17,500 to 23,000. The smaller range, like I said at the beginning of this, is around about 20,000 to 23,000, okay, or even 21,700 in a very short time frame. So I hope that kind of makes it clear on Bitcoin of where we're kind of looking for. So you've got levels of resistance and the levels of support. Let's have a look at the higher time frames to see if we do fall below that 18,750, where we could be, right? So let me just put all the balance areas. I do think that I've got volume zones. Here we are. Right, let me just take the view app off a second. In fact, no, I'm going to leave the view app on, but I am going to take these brush marks off. And yeah. Now, levels of support. Like I said before, 17,500 is the lower edge of this mini little volume cluster here, right? You can see that this is basically this little mini range here that we formed before the pump, right? So there is a little bit of a consolidation there. We got clearly a very strong rejection out of that. So now what we're trying to see is, will we get acceptance back inside of this range here, right? So somewhere between 21,500 and 25,500. Remember that level that we were looking at, 25,500, which is the second standard deviation from that VWAP, right? And it's basically where the monthly VWAP is as well, right? So 25,000 resistance, 21,700, 500, something like that as support if we do get above it. However, looking at this here on the daily chart, you can see that we've already got a little rejection there, right? So that's not a good sign, but we'll see. If it follows the S&P, then we could perhaps see that acceptance there. Levels of support, like I said, 17,500. If we fail that, then we're going to go a little bit lower, and you can see that we've got certain areas here, which I'll put some points of reference here, right? $14,000, $15,000, right? And then we got $12,000 as well, right? So I'm just going to delete that a second, but you can see these little clusters here of volume just below, okay, which is basically where we had a little bit of consolidation here on the way up. Do I pay much attention to that? To be perfectly honest, no. I'd like to pay a lot more attention to the low volume nodes within, right? And you can see that the 2020 VWAP is very, very close to that low volume node there, okay? So for me, that's important, and I'd be looking at around about $14,000 as the next level of support if we do indeed lose 1750 or 17,500. All right, so this level here, 14,000, something like that. That's the next level of support, okay? And then, of course, if that fails, then we will be looking at $12,000, which is basically the edge of this high volume cluster. To be honest, with everybody expecting that, I doubt very much that we'll get as low as that. We could see a little capitulation candle tap this level at 15,000, but I don't see that $12,000 hitting anytime soon when everybody expects it. Okay, I could be completely wrong, of course, all right? This is just me speculating. I'm not even, that's just, you know, I'm just trying to show you where these volume areas are and where we could potentially see some resistance and some support, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen like this, okay? All we can do is observe what price does at the levels that I'm showing you, all right? So at the moment, we're in an imbalance. As you can see here, we got rejected from above, we got rejected from below, and now we're kind of like just somewhere around here, right? Somewhere between 20,000 and 21,000. So we'll see where we find acceptance. Do we find acceptance above 21,500? Means that we almost certainly go and test 23,000, which is the edge of the -2 standard deviation here, right? And then also $25,000, which is basically where we've got all of those levels, right? We've got it's a low volume node there. It's basically the +2 standard deviation from the 2020 VWAP right there, right? I've just highlighted it here. So this is the +1, this is the +2, that's the VWAP there. This is the -1, this is the -2. All right, so just to try and make sense of that, okay? And of course, we've got the monthly VWAP and everything else there. So yeah, that's basically where we are right now, okay? So again, levels of resistance, we've got 23,000, so if we can get above 21,500, and then 25,000 and 28,000. Levels of support, we've got 20,000 for now, and then 17,500, and failing that, we're looking at around about $15,000 or 14,500 for the next level of support, okay? And failing that, 12,500 as well, all right? So the reason I'm showing you this level here at 28,700 is also because it's an edge of a high volume cluster there. But not only that, you can see that there's a line there that says the CME gap, and I'll show you why. This is also became a bit of a meme for a while because everybody was trading these and thinking that the CME gap is like the best strategy ever. And I have to admit, I did make quite a lot of money just trading these gaps for a very long time until everybody started looking at it, and then it stopped working, right? So there's a gap here and a gap here, and these are basically just the gaps as the price pauses on a Friday, and the market stopped trading until Sunday evening, right? So basically what happens between Friday and Sunday evening, if the price has moved significantly in one direction, it leaves a gap behind. And this is the gap. This is basically the Saturday, Friday night, Saturday all day, and Sunday all day until it opens again. And when the market opened, it opened all the way down here. So what tended to happen usually, and this we were trading this way back in 2019 and 2020, I believe, we were basically betting if the price was close enough that we would kind of revisit and go and close those gaps. And it was very, very accurate for a very long time. I haven't tested this for a very long time, but anyway, that CME gap there has perfect confluence with the previous level of support, which created this high volume cluster. So it's a HVE, and then on top of that, it's very close to the value area low of the developing years VWAP. Right, that's the value area high, that's the value area low, right? So we just take the second standard deviation off so it's not so confusing. There it is. Okay, so I hope you guys can see that clearly. I know I've got these lines a bit faint here, but you can see here very clearly where we are right now. 28,600 is basically where that value area low is. All right, so again, this is definitely a significant level of resistance, and of course getting acceptance above here would be really, really bullish, okay? It would almost certainly send us to like the mid-30s. So we'll have to wait and see if that happens. But that's basically all I've got on Bitcoin on the candlestick charts anyway. So I just wanted to highlight all of those levels, and as you can, I hope I haven't overwhelmed you with information here, but again, just to recap, you know the next levels of resistance now, okay? So like I said, on the 4-hour chart is perhaps easier to see, okay? So we've got a little bit of resistance here, around about 21,300. We've got some resistance here at 23,000, and we've got resistance at around about $25,000. If we've managed to smash through all of that, then the next and the big daddy of resistances is way up at $28,700. All right. Levels of support, like I said as well, we got $17,000 or 17,600, whatever. And if we fail that, then we're looking at 14,500 and 12,530. Okay, and those will be the next levels of support if we do indeed fail. Okay, at the moment it does look like 20,000 is holding as support, so perhaps we're doomed to be trading a crab market somewhere between 20,000 and 21,000 for the next 6 months. Who knows, right? But let's hope not. Although if the range is clearly defined, I'm quite happy to trade it. So that is it. Let's have a look at Exocharts here, and we start with the volume profile. And on the daily volume profile I've got here, you can see that we've taken out these two naked points of control. We rallied up. We found a little bit of resistance here with basically where this balance area is, right? Let me just put that as balance like that. Right, so we're consolidating here a little bit. We got rejected there at first. We came back down. We left a naked point of control. We rallied up. Left a naked point of control. Today that naked point of control, the lowest one, got taken at 19,989. So let's say 20,000, right? So that got taken and we rallied very strongly up above. So the next naked point of control is here at $21,000. If we can break above that, we've got another naked point of control here at $23,700. Okay, and again, because the price is so thin, if we can carry it on up, we've got another naked point of control at 27,400. Okay, and then we're starting to enter a realm of plenty of resistance in form of this support. Okay, so that's again that CME gap level and the previous area of support, right? If, however, all of that crap to the upside fails and we take out this naked point of control at 21,000 and continue lower, because let's not forget we are still doing lower highs and lower lows, right? There's no break in market structure, so there's plenty of support below and there's plenty of anomalies below. Around about 16,000 we've got a naked point of control. We've got another one here at 15, and we've got more around about all the way from 13 all the way to $9,000. Okay, so in terms of anomalies here, all I can see is these two naked points of control. One got taken. We've got one at 21,000 and the next one at 23,700. Looking at the market profile, I mean, there's no point of looking at the monthly. Let me just show you anyway. Okay, on the monthly volume profile, you can see that we've taken out that naked point of control that was sticking out like a sore thumb here at $19,000, and the rest of them are really, really low, around about $12,000. Okay, and we got one way up here at $48,000, but I don't think we're going to correct that one anytime soon. On the weekly volume profile, you can see that we've taken out these two naked points of control. We've got another one below around about $16,000, but we've also got a naked point of control here at 29,000. So $30,000, which is basically where we'd been there for nearly 5 weeks, just ranging. Okay, so again, I'm not entirely sure that this is valuable information. All I do know is that we've found a little bit of acceptance here. Okay, we're back inside of this week. This is an inside week. So do with that information what you will. With the market profile, things become a little bit more granular and a little bit more accurate. Now, the one thing that I'm worried about is that we have left several poor lows. We've got one there. We've also got, it won't let me, so let me just do it a different way. So I've got one poor low here, yet another poor low, and yet another poor low. Yesterday's got corrected, this one here, right? Nice and flat as well, as you can see that there, right? So that got corrected by today going a little bit lower, but guess what, we've got all the way up here at $20,800, and yet we've left yet another poor low. Okay, admittedly we had left a poor high up there as well, around about 21,600, right? And we've got a naked point of control at $21,000. Okay, 2150. All right, so we've got a naked point of control there. We've got a poor high at 21.8. But we've also left all of these anomalies here, right? This, and this, and that's not great. Okay, well, additionally, we've also got a session VWAP here, sorry, a daily VWAP close here that did not get tapped. These have got a very good record of getting tapped before the price moves in any direction, and now we've left this one below. Okay, we've left it behind. So not the greatest push up, if I'm honest. This is not a very convincing bottom in my personal opinion. Okay, I would have much rather seen a very large capitulation candle, so sort of like a big sort of wick to the downside, sort of like something like a very big wick like this, and then the price move up. That's plenty of excess there, and then just not leaving anomalies below like this. All right, so this shows, to me, shows weakness from the buyers, okay, or unwillingness to buy, and that liquidity there will probably get revisited. But again, if too much time and space happens in between, right, I mean, this is the 4th day since this bottom here, 3 days after this one, 2 days after this one, and today's one here. If it keeps going up and it doesn't revisit that, after a few days I stop looking at it, because there's no point of getting obsessed about that. Yes, it might come back, but it doesn't mean it has to come back in the next couple of days. It could take months. Okay, as you can see here, before we've left poor highs above all the way down, right? So it's important not to get obsessed, but in the near sort of term, right, because this happened just a few days ago, it is possible that we go and correct that. If we do not correct that and we keep going up, like I said, all of the levels that I've already highlighted, we've also got a naked point of control here at 23,700. We've got a poor high from yesterday here at 21,600, and then we've got some naked points of control here at $27,400. Okay, before we start entering those realms up above at 29 and so on. Okay, but so potentially we could see a very strong rally here on Bitcoin. As you can see, very low volume here. Right, you can see that. So plenty of volume here with this distribution, a little bit of volume of where we've been here for the next sort of like couple of weeks, for the last week or so. And look how shit the volume is here. There's just nothing between 22,000 and 28,000, right? Because the price traveled so quickly all the way down. So bear that in mind, that the price could travel very quickly, although we've got that 25k level that is a level of interest, right? So we could see some resistance on the way up. So that's all I've got for Bitcoin, and I hope that I made it clear and not too confusing, but I tried to give you some higher time frame levels so that you can trade depending on the volatility and depending on how close we get to them. Okay, if we see a strong move like we've seen on the S&P, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin start moving up as well and following the S&P because of the close correlation that we have with it. Okay, so it's very strange that we're kind of just sitting put even though the S&P is rallying, but again, the S&P is only rallying by 0.5%, so maybe it's not as significant as that. But anyway, moving on, let's move on to Ethereum versus USD. Start here with the 3-day chart. You can see that we're basically just still trying to find acceptance back inside the -2 standard deviation of the yearly VWAP, okay, which is basically around about $1,183. Okay, we bounced here on the second standard deviation of the 2021 VWAP, which just so happens to have confluence with the +2 standard deviation of the 2020 VWAP, right? So this level was important, right about $800. So this could potentially be a decent bottom, and from what I can see, this looks like a decent excess. We'll have a look at the market profile in a minute and see if there's any poor lows left there. But this is what I mean, a nice big wick to the downside tends to add conviction to the buys, right? It means that at some point the price was way down here, but the buyers chased it all the way back up again. So that's conviction in my personal opinion. But anyway, moving on, looking at the lower time frames, the 4-hour chart does look like we've just got acceptance inside of that monthly value area low. That's usually a good sign. Okay, so we got acceptance there. We've got a level here around about 1350 as resistance, as the monthly VWAP right there. Okay, we also look here at the weekly VWAP on the 30-minute chart, and you can see that we basically got rejected here at the weekly VWAP. However, we're rotational inside the previous week's value area. Okay, so this is the value area low, this is the value area high, and that's where we are right now. Okay, and you can see here doesn't really have much confluence with the monthly VWAP at all, but that's basically on the lower time frames where we could be ranging from, right? If I was to actually bet on a range and just looking at this kind of a volume profile here, right, you can argue that this whole thing is one big distribution, right, which would make sense. So you could grab a range and you can do something like this. And it starts making sense, right? You can see that this midpoint did get respected. This was resistance, then it turned to support until we broke below it. Here support, here it was resistance, here it was support, here was support, and now it's resistance again. So this midpoint is valid. We did touch the top and we did touch the bottom there. So bottom of the range run about $1,050, top of the range run about $1,200, okay, $1,189. So put the view up back on, and I just want to show you something on the 3-day chart. I'll just put the balance areas back on. So if I was to put this on a bigger time frame like that, you can see that we've got a little bit of consolidation here, right? And we formed a little cluster of volume just there, right? So at the moment we are getting acceptance above that $800 level. Okay, so we're still between $1,000 and $1,500 as the next levels of support and resistance, right? 1,000 as a support, 1,500 as resistance on the higher time frames. If we look at this on the lower time frames, such as the 4-hour, for example, you can see there was a deviation here of the lows there. It didn't even come and test the edge of the next balance area. It bounced straight back up. Once it reclaimed this here, right, acceptance inside of that, that was a long position. So here we are up there. Okay, the next level of resistance, of course, is going to be the top of this range here. As you can see, there's a little low volume area in between, and then we've got a low volume area right here around about $1,300, which is very, very close to where this monthly VWAP is. Okay, and even if we break above that, and if it follows Bitcoin and the S&P, then the next level of resistance will be around about here, 1440. So again, that $1,500. So $1,000 as support, $1,500 as resistance on the higher time frames. On the lower time frames, you can see that we've got little areas that could cause a little bit of friction going up. Okay, so we want to see the same thing. Let me just delete all these brush marks. Just a second. Okay, we want to see the same thing that I was explaining on Bitcoin. If we break one level to the upside, we don't want to get it reclaimed. Okay, we want to carry on printing higher highs, higher lows, and maintaining market structure. Okay, of course it's not going to be as perfect as that. Nothing is perfect, so it'll probably be something like this, come back down, and then kind of move up, and then move back down again, and then sort of deviate, and then go up, and then retrace that, and then do, you know, whatever it might be in whatever format it might happen. Right, so let's just delete that small range here. On the 4-hour chart, it actually becomes a little bit clearer, and it's very close to the Bitcoin range here, right? So we've got 1,050 as support, we've got 1,300 as resistance, and then we've also got that $880 level as a potential support of the range low. Okay, and you can see very clearly that we've got two little ranges forming here, right? And it's imperative, or it's essential, that we do not go below there. It's possible, but we don't want to go below there. We want to go break out of this here and carry on and attack this level of resistance. All right, that's kind of what we want to see. Of course, then if we do break above that and we see a massive rally on Ethereum following the lead of Bitcoin or whatever, then the next level we want to look at is that $1,500 level. Will we actually get acceptance back inside of this distribution area here? and then the price starts curling up? If so, then 1500 is now support, and the next level of resistance will be around about $2,000. Okay, and this will be the next range. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. For now, we just want to be trading inside of here. It does look like we've reclaimed that $1,050 level, so we want to look at $1,300 as the next level of resistance. If we break below 1,050, then we want to look at around about 890, potentially even $770 as the next level of support. We don't want to accept below this level here. Okay, so essentially what we want to do is, even if we revisit way down here, we want to get rejected straight away and get back inside of this range, because otherwise, if we get acceptance below here, or meaning if we cannot get back above this level here at $900, right, we'll almost certainly go and retest this. And if we get acceptance inside of this green area, and this now forms it as resistance, then we're very likely to go all the way down to at least $500. Big round number, okay, but potentially even as low as $320. So that's the doom and gloom. As I showed, just as I showed you above, where potentially where we could go to, we could also go much lower below. Okay, so we're kind of in the middle. But at the moment, this looks like bullish price action. But just like in Bitcoin, we haven't broken market structure. These are the previous highs. We've just reclaimed the middle of the channel, right? Or the middle of the range, if you like. So we want to break this market structure, even if it's just a little bit, and then just stay above it like this, in order to prove to me that this is indeed a higher high. Okay, and then we want to carry on up, and then hopefully be printing higher highs and higher lows. And that's basically the change in market dynamic. And I believe that it will be a lot easier for the price to start attracting new buyers and following price all the way back up again. Okay, but it's essential that we break market structure. And here on Ethereum is $1,300. On Bitcoin, that market structure is run about here, run about $23,000. Okay, we want to print a higher high. All right, so even if we get stopped here at 25, which is basically that monthly VWAP, we want to print higher highs and higher lows. That's basically what we want to see. All right, so that's the example that I was illustrating here on Ethereum USD. So moving on to Exocharts, let's have a look at Ethereum, and just bear with me just a second. Yeah, sorry about that. So looking at Ethereum here, trying to see if there's any excess or any pull lows below. Okay, so this is actually interesting. We've got a nice little bit of excess here on that low. Okay, so you can see there's a buying tail here, right about $876. All right, so this one here. So this is definitely a decent low. However, we did leave a pull low here, and we've also got a naked point of control at $960. So that's potentially, if we do go lower, this potentially could be the places where we go and test to see if the liquidity is enough to push us back up again. But that's basically potentially a target to the downside. So even if we're still bullish and we don't take out the previous lows, I do think that if we go low, we could see a bounce here, $960, okay? Because, and maybe even take out this low here, around about 920, because they are anomalies, okay? And not much time has passed since, all right? Talking of anomalies as well, you can see that we've got a poor high there. We've got yet another poor high here, right? We've got poor highs everywhere. We've got another one here, right? And we've got a naked point of control. Oh, we've got some single prints here as well at around about $1,400, and we've got a naked point of control at $1,460. So if we are to see a significant rally on Bitcoin and on the S&P, etc., and it starts dragging Ethereum up with it, these levels will get taken. These single prints will be a little bit of resistance, around about $1,400, but eventually this one here is basically where we get stumped, round about here. I think we'll probably consolidate there for a while Okay, we've got plenty of single prints above us, but I don't want to be just talking anything above $1,500 is too far ahead to be talking about. Okay, so for now, let's just see if we can get above these highs here around about $1,250, $1,300. Okay, and if we get above that, that's a change in market structure. All right, a change in dynamics, if you will, and it would be doing something like I just showed you on the candlesticks, where this is the previous high, and now we've changed that, broke above the highs, confirmed that that resistance is now support, and we carry on higher to take out these levels. But we'll have to wait and see if that pans out or not. Okay, so that's what I see here on the market profile. I think the volume profile is going to be very much the same thing. Let's just have a look. I've got a naked point of control here around about $1,150, and then we've got another naked point of control at $1,460. Okay, $1,460. Interesting to see here that actually the volume between $1,250 and $1,700 is almost non-existent. Okay, so the price could travel just as quick as it traveled here. It could be a very sharp, very quick move, very violent move. Just like it did here to the downside, it could be a very violent move all the way to $1,700. So that's worth noting, and it's something that it could potentially be, it could definitely happen. We might not stop at 1,500 or 1,455. We could just push all the way back up again if there's enough strength and enough momentum. So with that out of the way, I think that I covered most of everything to do with Ethereum, at least with Ethereum USD. So let's move back onto the charts, and I think I'll move on to Ethereum versus BTC. Okay, so again we start on the higher time frames. You can see that the market's holding pretty damn well above this 2021 VWAP here. This VWAP close is holding up pretty well there, even though there's hardly any volume below. We did kind of like, it became a little bit how can I say, a little bit erratic, the price, whipsawing and going sort of like a little bit crazy with plenty of wicks. But you can see all these wicks just basically signal plenty of buying happening at these lows, right? So around about 50,000 sats is basically where the buyers have stepped in, and 50,000 sats is now the next level of support, additionally to this 53,000, 54,000 sats that we're at right now. Okay, so clearly the next level of resistance, if you look at this as one volume distribution, will be around about 55,000 sats, which is basically where we are right now. Okay, as Bitcoin is rallying and Ethereum is not, you can see that we're starting to lose a little bit of track here on Ethereum, because this is the ETH BTC chart. But if it carries on holding pretty well, then we could just go a little bit sideways here until we move back up again. Okay, so this is the next level of support, this here is the next level of support, and we can just start seeing something like this, regain the level, go back up again to the next one, do a little bit of consolidation, break above, and so on. Okay, but without wanting to make it too much like a narrative, I'll just give you the facts of where we are right now. And I see levels of resistance 55, then 57, 60, and 64, 65,000 sats here. Okay, that's basically what I'm seeing here for levels of resistance moving forward. Okay, so just bear with me just a second, my kids are being noisy. Alright, so that's basically what I'm seeing here. 65,000 sats is the ultimate level of resistance, as we've got also a low volume node, and it's the edge of this high volume cluster here, and also the edge of this one, if you like. Alright, so just bear that in mind. However, these are the lower time frame kind of next levels of resistance moving forward. In terms of levels of support, you can see that basically where we are right now at 53,500 is a level of support, which is where the 2021 VWAP, and it's a significant one at that. And then of course we've got 50,000 sats, because it's basically a big round number, and then after that we've got a double distribution here, right? So 44,000 sats here is a significant level, as it is the edge of this high volume cluster. However, if we get acceptance below that, we're almost certainly going to see that level there. So we would be forming a range in here, right? But that is miles ahead. It's not worth thinking about it just yet. It's not going to happen in the next couple of days unless something really crazy happens, right? So I'm just keeping it in mind. You've got pretty much just big round numbers: 47, 50, 53, as the next levels of support, and then we've got 55, 57, 60 and 65 as the next levels of resistance. Okay, so that's the ETH BTC chart, and if we were looking without the support and resistance and just looking just at the VWAPs, right, you can see that we are, just put the second standard deviation there. Okay, we are just basically just inside of the 2021 value. Okay, we're right at the 2021 VWAP close. Okay, we didn't even test the lows here. So Ethereum had been pretty damn strong, and you can see that we got rejected here a couple of times on the value area, oh sorry, on the +2 standard deviation, right? And the same here, +2 standard deviation of the developing years VWAP. And right now, of course, we broke market structure, right? This is market structure, we broke that, and we carried on much lower, but it seems like we found acceptance here, right? Which is inside the value of 2021. So it's essential that we do not lose that, otherwise we're almost certainly going to go and revisit these levels down here. But if we do not break that, and if we can carry on moving up, then you can see the next level of resistance showing up a little bit like here on the developing years VWAP, with this one in particular being important as it has confluence with the value area low of the developing years VWAP here, right? You can see that there, that's the value area low, and it also has perfect confluence with this low volume node, 65,000 sats. So that's an important one. Okay, so if Ethereum decides to rally and it starts outperforming Bitcoin, then at least you know now the levels of resistance moving forward. All right, so that's ETH BTC. So with that out of the way, I don't want to go on too much about these alts, but I will do all the FODL trading pairs, or basically all the trading pairs that you can trade on FODL platform. And if you don't know what the FODL platform is basically a decentralized, 100% decentralized leverage trading platform. And basically you don't have to deposit your funds anywhere. You can trade straight on chain, and you trade straight from your hardware wallet or whatever. So you reduce the counterparty risk. No, if it's not your keys, it's not your coins, basically, right? So anyway, FODL also has a token, so we start with that one, FODL versus USDT, which is a FODL versus Tether on OkEx. And if we look here at the daily chart, you can see that we're just kind of printing lower highs and lower lows, and it's just basically in free fall at the moment as we are in price discovery. Okay, this is a previous level of support. No doubt it will be resistance when we get to it. Okay, these levels here were basically just levels, big round numbers. Okay, so it's just levels of interest as round numbers, but we've just kind of been losing with the current market conditions. We've just been losing territory, if you like, and just going lower and lower and lower. So at the moment we're standing around about 2 cents, 2.2 cents, and I don't see this changing unless there's a change in market structure on Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. Okay, so again, it's just going to keep going lower until it finds a little bit of balance, and you're looking really at the big round numbers for potential levels of support. Okay, if we do, however, go higher, when we do go higher, you can see that this is very, very illiquid. This is, you know, there's hardly any pullbacks there. So as quickly as it got down here, it'll be just as quick to move up. So just keep that in mind. Okay, that's how it works. Right, so some great opportunities in the making here. So FODL versus USDC, this is on sushiswap, very much the same scenario, although we are starting to see the price kind of like curl up a little bit here, right? So we could be close to finding a little bit of support and a little bit of a range here. It could be just the same as what we found here, and then eventually still fall through if the market conditions so dictate. But if we find a little range here, I will start buying and accumulating, because I do think that with these larger liquid moves, you can see that this will travel very quickly all the way back up again. So that's FODL versus USDT. FODL versus ETH, where again in price discovery we are breaking level after level. We're very close to the all-time lows, basically the genesis of this coin, right? And we're getting very close to that. And again, very large liquid moves all the way to the downside, strong impulses with hardly any pullback. All right, so you can see that actually there's been a few pullbacks here, pullback here, massive one here, massive one here. So there's no harm in buying and then putting some sell orders way up here. As you can see, these large wicks like that, they do tend to fill. Okay, so just, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you this as an observation and educational purposes. But I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that we are moving very quickly to the downside, and then that price gets retraced. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, no change in market dynamics. We're still printing lower highs and lower lows on FODL versus ETH. Binance versus USD, BNB USD. Okay, we're still holding that level of support, and this will be the next level of resistance here. Okay, in fact, I'm going to put that as a red line because enough time has passed. Okay, so basically this is resistance and this here is support, and the price is holding very well there. Okay, if we fall below this level, that's a very big drop all the way to 150, perhaps even as low as $130. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's not much in the way of volume because how we came up, right? So we could find a little bit of support here, but then there's also a nice big drop to $72. Okay, let me remind you, we're at $200. All right. Of course, it doesn't mean that we're going to go straight down there, although if this level fails here without just a fake out like this, a deviation, if this level fails here, then I think we've got a very good chance to go in all the way down there. However, this scares me. There's hardly any volume above this little cluster here. So when this takes off, it's going to take off really hard, and it's got all the way to $287 with hardly any resistance. Okay, so for me, this is not a bet that I'm willing to take at support. Okay, at support you want to buy, you don't want to sell, especially when we've just had a deviation to the downside and acceptance back in. So I think Binance coin is going to be doing very, very well, and it'll be going from $200 to $287 in the near future, especially if Bitcoin so determines, meaning if Bitcoin keeps going up. If Bitcoin goes down, then of course it could drag everything else down with it, just like it always does. But just keep that in mind. Okay. Binance versus BTC, BNB BTC. So let me just delete some of these brush marks. Interestingly enough, we have now tested, we've gotten above this high of this range here, which is previous resistance, resistance, resistance. We've tested above, and we're inside of this cluster here. All right, so will it be a deviation like this one, or we will get acceptance? So how do you determine that? Well, it's very simple. If we are here like this, and even if we retrace, come back and stay above the previous level of resistance, which is this level here, around about 10,600 sats, that means that we almost certainly go to here, to the other side of the balance. However, if the price gets up here, and then when it comes in retrace, it falls back inside the previous range, which is in this case this gray box, and it falls below 10,600, well, guess what? This low volume node, which is basically what separates the two distributions, is going to act as resistance, and as such, we're going to go lower. All right. First point to take profit is this yearly VWAP. Okay, and then eventually we will be going to this one here. All right. As you can see, it's one large distribution divided in half. Right, so you could argue that this is actually a little double distribution here. All right, but that's basically how you determine if we get acceptance above or not. Okay, acceptance above means that we do not fall back inside of this range. We get rejected. Is this just going to rally straight up? It's possible, but I don't think it will. I think we will get to see, at least on the lower time frames, perhaps on the 4 hour, we'll get to see because look, resistance, 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 break above, fall back inside. Resistance is still hovering at resistance. This is going to break to the upside. I'm pretty damn sure that this is going to break to the upside. Okay, and in fact already has. So now we want to see a retrace. We want to come back all the way back to $10,600. 10,600 sats, and that wants to hold as support. And if that holds as support, I'll be entering a long position going to here, 11,600. Okay, so 1,000 sats range. Okay, that's quite a lot. That's 9%. All right, so with that in mind, that's BNB versus BTC. Of course, like I said, if we accept back inside the gray box, that means that we go lower, and we could potentially find a bounce here at the yearly VWAP, right? So we could see a little range forming in here. and another one forming down here like that, right? I'm going to delete these green lines just so they become confusing, but that's basically what I'm saying. Okay, so that's Binance versus BTC. Binance versus ETH, we are very quickly approaching, let me just put this on the daily, approaching that level of resistance. Okay, this was definitely resistance until proven otherwise, just like we've seen here, right? So again, the same thing applies. If we accept above and then confirm that this is indeed support, guess what? We're pretty much in price discovery, because this is as high as it's ever been, right? This is the next level of resistance here. But I mean, there's hardly any price action that precedes that at these highs. Okay, so that would be very, very strong for Binance Coin, for BNB. All right, but this is still resistance until proven otherwise, and that's basically it. Okay, so at the moment, like I said, this is resistance. If we break above it, we could potentially go all the way to 2,900 way. But in the meantime, this is resistance until proven otherwise. If we get rejected here, then we'll be looking at this line down here at 1687 as the next level of support. And if we fail that one, we could be looking at 1500 and 1400 as the next levels of support. Okay, so that's Binance versus ETH. Moving on to AAVE versus USD. We did break that market structure, so I've put a little line there. That's a break in market structure, even though we got stopped at that resistance there, right? We got stopped there. However, we just printed a high, right? So now essentially what we want to see, we don't want to see this level get broken. Okay, we want to see maybe the price even just kind of rotate here like this. Even if it goes all the way down to here, it wants to break up and continue to print higher highs and higher lows. All right, so if this is the beginning of a break in market structure, we don't want to see these lows get taken down, okay, or even the previous low. All right, so potentially this is still the range that we're at, but potentially I think we could break very quickly to the upside here, to the next level of resistance, and go and trade within this range here. All right, so that's what I'm seeing here. So at the moment, $75 is resistance. If we break above $75, then the next level of resistance will be $113. We want to stay really above $50 if we are to carry on bullish market structure and change this market structure of lower highs and lower lows. Okay, that would be the beginning of it, and that's perhaps a little bit more visible here on the lower time frames. Just delete all of these brush marks. All right, as you can see here, that's a high, that's a low. We've just printed a higher high, and now we want to print a higher low. Okay, so it wants to be lower than this one. So maybe even if it comes all the way down here to $52 here, right, it wants to see, the price wants to move up like that. If it starts curling up, then I'm betting that this level of resistance might not hold very long. Okay, that's basically how I see this happening here on AAVE versus USD. But for all effects, 76 is still resistance and 46 is still support. Okay, so just bear that in mind. AAVE versus BTC. Just put this on the daily chart again. Okay. So you can see this level is definitely acting as resistance right now. So I'm going to put it as red. Okay, so you can see that we've got a little range forming here, right? And the mid-range is proving to be difficult. All right, it's proving to be a level of resistance. All right, so basically that's what we've got. We've got one big volume distribution, sort of divided in half. Okay, with a point of control in the middle, if you like. All right, even though that point of control in theory is way down here, I'm just giving you an example of the equilibrium of this range. Okay, and the equilibrium right now is around about here, 3,200 sats. Okay, 3,200 sats is resistance. Support is around about 2,500 sats. If we break below 2,500, then we're looking at 2,250 and perhaps even 1,361 as the next levels of support. If, however, we break above this level of resistance, then the next level of resistance will be this one here at 3,997. Let's say 4,000 sats for argument's sake. Okay, so we're inside of this range. If we break above it, we'll be inside of this range. Okay, so AAVE versus ETH. Okay, so interestingly enough, we did break above this level here. So let's put that as green as support. Okay, so naturally this range is now what applies. Okay, so now we're trading above, right? And there's tapering volume there, and this level of resistance is still acting, but it could very easily get broken there as well. Okay, previous level of support, kind of support, but broke straight through, and now it's the first time that we're trying it since way back in April. Okay, so naturally it's going to be resistance, right? So this is the range that you expect to trade in. However, if we break to the upside, this is going to be the next level of resistance, and therefore we should be trading inside of that range there. However, if we do fall below this yearly VWAP, right, this level of support, we could see ourselves way back down here again, okay, and then trade sort of like down here in this range. But at the moment there's no reason for me to think that. This is very, very bullish, and as long as we stay above this level here, I think it's potentially going to the upside. Again, this is a previous high, this is the high, and we've just broken above that. Even though we're not closed above it, we've definitely broken above it and printed a higher high. Okay, yes, you could argue that it's lower than this one, right? But in terms of recency, this was a high, this is a low, this is a lower low. Now we've printed a higher high, right? This is a low, this is a higher low, and essentially if we come all the way back here and then start rallying again, well, that was a higher low as well. So now we've got a higher high and a higher low. So that's the change in market dynamics that you want to see as a turn of market momentum, if you like, of a trend shift, so to speak. Moving on to compound versus USD. Compound is still testing this level of resistance. Okay, at the moment I don't pay much attention to these levels of resistance. That's why they're in orange, simply because there is not much volume there. Okay, and the price traveled so quickly all the way down. All right, it is finding resistance there. However, I do think that the real level of resistance is way up here. Okay, so I expect this here to be the next level of resistance, and this here to act as support. These levels are kind of like, they could do, but they might not. Okay, so this is $40 and this is $50. Again, big round numbers, so potentially they could do support resistance levels, but technically speaking, in terms of like market structure, this is the level that you want to be looking at. So 55 as resistance, 26 or perhaps $30 as the next level of support. Compound BTC, okay, so we broke above this one here. So let me just delete some of these brush marks. All right. Okay, so this here is now green, as it should act as a level of support. Okay, potentially. Right, this is still resistance. So again, we've not really changed market structure. This is a high, this is a lower high, and this is a lower high yet again. Right. Please note as well where we got rejected. We got rejected on the value area low of the developing years VWAP. Okay, so this is significant. But ideally, what we want to see the price bounce here. Edge of a high volume cluster there, low volume area below, right? We want to see the price stay above here and just kind of rotate sideways here until we break to either side, and preferably to the upside. Okay, so this will be the next level of resistance, including this one, and then this one, and this one here will be a big one. Okay, so you can see here's the previous level of support, previous level of resistance. Okay, we ideally want to see us kind of like rotating inside of there. All right. But of course, it wouldn't do no harm. Let me just delete all of these things to make it less confusing. Just to make it clear. Okay, this is the next level of resistance right there. Okay, but if we break above it, then the previous level of support that's acted as resistance is this one. If we break above that previous level of support, it's not even tapped as resistance, it's this one. Okay, so basically we've got loads of little ranges that could potentially form here. Something like this, right? So this is going to take time unless we see a massive impulse to the upside. But that's basically what I'm seeing here on compound versus BTC. Levels to the downside, of course, we're just looking at big round numbers, okay? So 150 sats, we could be looking at 140, 130, 120, 110, or you could just go in 50s, right? And you can look at 200 sats, which is basically where we're being rejected, 150 sats as the next level of support, and you can look at 100 sats as the next level of support, okay? However, when we've got previous price action here, frame of reference, then I'm starting to look at these structures here. And that's why I've put that little line there, okay? So that's compound versus BTC. Compound versus ETH. Nice, this is acted as support, so I'm going to put that as green. This one here did not act as much as a resistance, so hopefully I'll put that as yellow, okay? And this level here is definitely acting as resistance right now. And again, where does the price stop? Let me just delete all of these brush marks. At the yearly VWAP. Once we got acceptance above the value area low, it rallied all the way to the yearly VWAP. Okay, that's basically where we found resistance. All right, so right now it does look like it's getting rejected there. So potentially there's not much volume down here, right? Potentially what we want to see the price kind of stay above here like this, right? Previous resistance level here. Can you see that? Right? So we want to see the price do this and then get the strength to break above it to the next level of resistance. However, this is a larger liquid move. There's hardly any volume there. So we could fall way back inside of here and find ourselves in that range again. But ideally we want to be inside of there, okay? Levels of resistance in red, levels of support in green. And it's worth saying that the levels of support are based just on big round numbers because we've got no frame of reference in previous price action. BAT versus USD. So BAT still kind of staying inside of this range here, right, on the top range. So this here is support, this here is resistance, and it will carry on rotating between 35 and 45 cents until proven otherwise. If we break to the downside, then we could potentially form a range here between 35 and 25 cents. Okay, if we break above 43 cents, then you can see large liquid move, not much in the way of price action. We could find the next level of resistance at around about 60 cents. Okay, so that's potentially what we could see here. If we break above this level of resistance, this will be the next one, and we could see a nice range forming inside of there. All right, but we'll just have to wait and see. If it does rally all the way up, there's the yearly VWAP right there at around about 75 cents, which will most likely cause resistance. BAT versus BTC. BAT is outperforming Bitcoin. I mean, even versus USD, it's not doing too badly. It's just going sideways. But of course, with Bitcoin not doing anything, BAT is just, in comparison, it's just rallying, right? So again, we've found resistance at this yearly VWAP. Okay, we are finding support here, so it does look like we'll be trading inside of this range here. Okay, with this being support and this being resistance. Okay, although we're having a little bit of trouble getting above that yearly VWAP. All right, so we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. But we could potentially see a nice little range forming inside of here like this. If we fall back below, then this is the next level of support, and then potentially this one here is the next level of support as well. Okay, so that's BAT versus BTC. BAT versus ETH. As the next levels of resistance. This is a change in market structure as well, as you can see here. Lower highs, lower lows, right? And boom, it rallies and it takes out the previous highs there, or at least they look like very much like equal highs actually. All right, so but it's definitely broken market structure because these highs got taken, right? This was a low, this is a previous, this is a higher low. So now as long as even if we come all the way back here, hell, I mean, even if we come all the way back here, that is still a higher low, right? But we wanted to, I'd like to see the price going a little bit higher just to print that higher high there. But it's definitely a higher high compared to these last three, okay? So in terms of recency, you could definitely argue that there's a change in market structure. So let's just hope that this is not a false rally and that we do indeed carry this momentum, right? So this one is an important one here. And this here at the moment is resistance. till proven otherwise. So we could see a nice little range forming between these levels here. Okay, but you can see the edge of this high volume cluster is right where we are right now. Okay, so important level of resistance right there. So moving on to Link USD. And even though we deviated to the downside right here, price got quickly bought up. We reclaimed the lows this way, reclaimed that, and then what happens when we deviate below a range and we reclaim it? That's right, we go to the other side of the fucking range, right? In principle. So I think that even though we're getting rejected at the value area low of this yearly VWAP here, I think we could potentially see a bounce here. This will be the next level of resistance, and then this one here will be the proper resistance. Okay, and again, you can see here on the distributions in volume, okay, where we see those edges. So next level of support right now is $6.60. It's exactly where we are right now. Okay, if we fall below that, then we go to $5. If, however, we hold $6.60, then I think $8 and then $10 as the next level of resistance. Sorry, not $10, $9.50. $9.50. Link BTC. Ooh, very close to that yearly VWAP. It didn't quite tap that, but we are kind of standing on this edge here. So is this going to be support or is this going to be resistance? So I'll put it as an orange line yet. Ideally, what we want to see is we want to see a range forming there, okay? But of course, if we get rejected here, then the range will be actually formed down here like this. Okay, well, you can see there's a low volume node there that should act as support. So ideally what we see here is actually a change in market dynamics where we take out these highs and we go all the way up here. But we'll have to wait and see. It'd be nice to see some momentum here on Link versus Bitcoin. All right, failing that, if we get below that, then I think we've got some more levels down here to clear. And again, looking just at big round numbers, 2,000 sats here and 1,550 sats. Link versus ETH. Self-explanatory really. We are above that yearly VWAP, okay? So these levels here should hold as support, and this here is the value area high of the developing years VWAP 2022. So this here should be resistance, hence why we've got this arrow here, and that should be the range that we're trading in. So if I delete all of that so it's not so confusing, okay, I want to see this here hold as support, this here hold as resistance, and I want to see a range forming inside of there like that. Okay, of course, if we break above it, then we've got the next level of resistance up here. If we break below it, we've got all those levels of support down here. Okay, moving on to Link versus, sorry, this is Link versus ETH. So moving on to Uni USD. Uni USD, and you can see that basically we've done the same thing, right, that we did on Link USD, which is basically formed the bottom here. Let me just delete all of these lines. I'll explain this again in case you guys weren't here on Monday. Right, so we formed the bottom here. The price deviates below, accepts back inside of the range. Okay, so this level here now should not be in red, should be in green. That should be the bottom of the range. Okay, and that should be support. So potentially we should be forming a range inside of here, basically inside of this volume cluster here. All right, if we break above this level here, then you can see that there's hardly any volume all the way up, right? You can see that there was a little support here, broke below, confirmed it as resistance and came down, hence why there's a red line there. But I mean, and there's a yearly VWAP there as well, so this could potentially be the next level of resistance here, right? So we could be forming yet another range there like that. But for now, you should focus on this as resistance and this here as support. All right, and that's basically it. Okay, of course, if this support fails, then we're going to be looking at this level here as the next level of support, which is around about $3. Okay, although $3.50 has been holding as support as well. And again, just because it's a big round number, this is all-time lows. There is no previous frame of reference in order to be trading this. We're just looking at big round numbers to trade from, because the human mind likes big round numbers. It makes more sense and it's easier to remember when you're typing it in. So basically we're range trading again, and it looks like $4.60 is support and $6 is resistance. Uni BTC, Uni is rallying versus Bitcoin just like everything else is. Okay, so this here, previous level of resistance, has been tapped 1, 2, 3 times though, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times actually. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this level of resistance fail actually. We broke above that yearly VWAP with conviction, even though it did act as support, as resistance first. Just highlight it for you. Okay, the first candle here, you can see that we got rejected there first, but now we broke above it and we've got plenty of volume in this candle. That's why it's in blue, right? So yes, this is the next level of resistance, but I don't expect that to hold very long, and I think the next one will be more significant. Okay, it's also the value area high of the current year's VWAP. Okay, and the reason I don't believe this one will hold very strongly is because it's been tested so many times. Okay, so we'll just have to wait and see where the next levels of resistance will be, but I do think that that level will break eventually. This one is as good as any, as it is an edge of a high volume cluster, and it's also the value area high of the developing year's VWAP. All right, this level here should now be holding as support, so I'll change it to green, as well as this one and this one here and this one here. And again, this is a change in market structure. As you can see, this is a previous high, lower high, and boom, we break above it. Okay, so ideally what we want to see a higher low, meaning that we could potentially get here, get resistance. This here should be support. Okay, so we could see this range still in play, and that would still be a higher low. Okay, so that's Uni versus BTC. Finally, Uni versus ETH, and that looks even stronger. So let me just delete some of these brush marks as levels are being taken out now. Okay, so Uniswap on a tear here. We broke above that yearly VWAP here, levels of support here. This is a previous level of support, now it's acting as resistance. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this now. It's also an edge of a high volume cluster. It depends actually. This could very easily go all the way up to here. All right, because this is acceptance inside this volume cluster here. So let me just adjust this slightly and put that like that, because this one here, in my opinion, is more significant. Okay, so I'm going to change that to green as well. I'm going to change that as green. I'm going to change this to green as well. And the reason this rectangle is there is because, as you can see, that was a low volume area here, right? A very low volume edge here. So these should act as support now, okay, like that. So we could potentially see a range forming between this level here, or even this level here, and these levels here as resistance. So very small range here potentially. Just go sideways. If we break to either side, this here should hold as really decent support, and this one here should hold as decent resistance. Okay, at least in the near future. So I'll have another technical analysis for you guys on Friday morning. I'll try and be earlier this time. But thanks very much for watching. I hope this puts you on the right side of the trades. I'm sorry it was a late one. Like I said, I've had to take my kid to hospital. He's got a fractured foot because he practices mixed martial arts, and he just kicks like a mule. So the little ripper got a little fractured foot, and so I had to spend the whole day in freaking hospital with him. But all is good, there's no problems at all. So again, like I said, trade smart, protect your capital. It does look like we've hit at least a temporary bottom. We could be going up, so don't go all in, but it's definitely time to be a little bit more confident in your buying, and less confident in your selling. So not financial advice, this is just for educational and entertainment purposes. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any more questions, join the FODL group. There's people in there all the time helping others. So you guys are more than welcome. Just announce yourself and say you want to join the trading group, and we'll give you the permissions to start chatting in the group as well. Okay, so in the meantime, I hope you have a great day, and I'll speak to you guys on Friday. Cheers. Bye-bye.